broadcasting alive from the Green Room Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. It's the At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates, celebrating 25 years of home and garden wisdom. Without further ado, your hosts, Josh Cary and David Bates.
Oh yeah, everybody knows what that music means, David Bates. It's now time to climb a tree. Don your loincloth here in the Green Room Studios, and then survey the backyard, because you've got to find a project. This is a no excuses day for doing a project, David Bates.
We have a gorgeous one.
That's going to be great. Hey, it is Saturday morning. It is the At Home Show coming to you alive here from the Green Room Studios at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. What a glorious morning. It's so wonderful to drive into the nursery on days like today.
Well, you know, we've got a really great forecast for today, and we've got upcoming days, and, you know, wonderfully, we still have some chances of rain in the forecast, which has been really gracious to this point. We've had good moisture. A week ago, we were quite dry. We've had a number of excellent rain events over the past week.
Yes, we have.
But today, it will be mostly sunny and 92 degrees. And maybe a chance of rain in the later evening hours. Tomorrow, 91 for the high. Morning thunderstorms, maybe a couple of tenths of an inch of rain. It'll certainly be welcome. Monday, a little bit cooler. 89 degrees, 66 for the overnight low, and sunny. More of the same on Tuesday, perhaps slightly cooler. Wednesday, we've got some few clouds moving in as in Thursday, and slightly warming. Friday looks like it could be the one pretty hot day for the week. 96 on Friday if this forecast is indeed true. And then we've got rain moving in again by next weekend. So that's really for summertime forecasting.
Summertime, yeah.
It's a pretty good. We'll look at the radar here quickly, and you'll see that there are some thunderstorms, but they're nowhere around us out in the eastern or the western Atlantic, east of the coast of the North Carolina, up in New England, and of course up in the Iowa, South Dakota area, up in out that way. No chance of any rain for us during the daylight hours today. This week, however, check a little of the event here. We've had 89 hundredths of an inch of rain for the week, so that's really quite good. We're up to 2534 for the year, a little over 2 inches for the month. That's according to the weather station here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, where it is currently 65 degrees. So a wonderful start.
Gorgeous morning.
Wonderful day. So we're really glad to be here and glad to get to see everyone today, including you, Josh.
Including me, David Bates?
Yeah, including you. But we're also really glad to have everyone in the studio here with us. Of course, we couldn't be on the air were it not for Tyler Blankenship. Good morning, Tyler.
Good morning, David.
Thank you for doing all that you do to keep us in line in the mornings. And, of course, across the way, Caroline Gant, Austin Lowen. Good morning, guys. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Hello, everybody.
So we've made the transition successfully into summer, and we
resisted it.
Well, you know, spring was really nice this year. We actually had a real spring.
Yes, we did.
But in keeping with this summertime transition, Tyler and various members of the staff have begun getting into our educational videos. Last week, Ben Trest did a great video with Tyler about shade trees, and this week was Austin's shot at his 9 most underused trees. And if you haven't taken the time to watch that video, we kind of snuck a link in there in the newsletter this week. I'll feature it more prominently next week in the newsletter. Some great information in there, Austin, about some really wonderful trees, and certainly any one of them are a great candidate for anyone's home.
Yeah, it was just, we thought about it, as a number, 9 at least, of these trees that I decided to talk about, and ones that we carry all the time that most people don't even know what they are. So I went in there and talked about them and gave them some options on where you could put them and how to use them, and some of those trees that are talking points, someone come to your yard and be like, what in the world is that? and then you can tell them a weird tree. That's cool.
What's your favorite weird tree?
What on my webinar that I did, probably the what is it? The Chinese fringe tree.
Ooh,
Oh, that's a good one.
That's
yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful tree. I've got one
kinda
on the corner
partial
of my home.
to the Styrex japonica, I think is my favorite of that list you had there. That's another really interesting, understated. Doesn't get too large.
Uh-huh.
Some of those trees you featured are indeed unusual, but they do get quite big.
Yeah.
For most people's landscapes, if they're living in a home that has been around for a while, they might not have room for some of the trees you've got on there. Yellowwood, another wonderful tree.
makes a great deck, too.
They do get quite large. The good thing about, I would say, the common feature with most of the things you put on there is that none of them are what you would call fast growers. They are slow to mature, so you have quite a lot of time to work with as far as affording them enough space in your landscape.
Chinese fringe tree is such a southern classic too. I mean, it really is for some of those older homes. What about Buckeye? Was it on the list? I only was able to catch on the original broadcast just a fragment of the show. So.
Red Buckeye was not on the list,
Okay.
although I kind of wanted it to be. I, to be quite honest, I just forgot. I had thought about putting it on there, and there could have been 10 trees.
Okay.
I don't know why we did 9. I should have done 10. But anyway.
David Letterman stole that first. So.
Yeah. But, yeah, the Red Buckeye could have certainly been on the list because that's an excellent tree as well. I've got one of those in the yard. It's getting to be about 6 to 7 foot now with a nice little spread. Red
Wow.
Buckeye is
Whoa.
a cool little tree.
Yep.
Nice. So everyone
All
go
right, but-
watch Austin's webinar.
Yep.
Do it.
Yep, do that. I'm sure that per usual, we've got a lot of questions out there in the queue. Perhaps some we didn't get answered last week. So
Maybe.
unless there's some other points you guys wish to cover before we get into all of that.
I think I'm ready to dive into questions.
Are we?
Are we?
Are we
I
ready?
think we are. Let's talk about crepe myrtles to start.
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
According to the Black Diamond Red Hot Crepe Myrtle info tag, the crepe myrtle will get 10 feet tall by 8 feet in its mature size. Does it hinder the crepe myrtle to keep it topped off at a height of 6 feet?
No, it does not.
No.
There it is.
It's
What
fine.
you don't want to do is trim it right now.
Yeah, no,
Right?
no.
You could go in there in the dormant season or which is just coming out of new growth and cut that thing back, and you can easily keep it within any kind of a size frame you want. However, if I hate to excessively trim crepe myrtles. They get that lollipop look to them. It's not gorgeous, but certainly they're controllable. Weather will do it to some extent also. Those
Especially
can be
this year.
susceptible to freeze damage. So, you're going to be cutting them back frequently, or at least every few years, much more severely than that. So they're
Yeah,
pretty
so you
easy
can-
to control.
They are. I mean, over the wintertime when they are dormant, take them down to about 4 feet and then watch the new growth happen. That'll bust out a whole new 2 feet of growth, getting up to that kind of 6 foot area where you want it, and then it'll bloom atop of that, and that'll be good. But yeah, you just do it over the wintertime, like David said. Don't do it right now. You're going to be cutting off the
Single
flowers that are
bloom,
about
yeah.
to happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that'd be
flowers are
sad.
about to happen. So
It's
get
an
ready
exciting
for it.
time. Let's stay on the topic of pruning and go ahead and talk about some hydrangea. I purchased a Phantom Paniculata bush from you in 2021. It's doing well. I keep it watered, sunshade, and hot afternoons. I would like to try to make it more like a tree. How can I prune it in the late fall? I can send a photo if needed. So let's just
Okay.
talk about how to make it look like a tree form.
All right, this is a great question. And Phantom is an old school, been around forever.
I have one.
Panicle hydrangea, and I love them. They're a little bit different than like your classic limelight, to where they have more open, they get more airspace in between their bloom set, if that makes sense. And they're pure white, really still pure white. And then, to make them tree form, it's not all that hard. And you can even do this right now. And all you're going to do is just literally go to the point where you want your canopy to start. So say that's at 4 feet, say that's at 6 feet. I don't know how big it actually is. But all you got to do is go in there and take all those lower leaves off and just prune everything off down below. Keep the stems, obviously. Keep the stems up. You're literally going to be pruning individual leaves and small, like little sticks, that may be coming out on that. and pick the amount of stems you want to keep, whether it be 4, whether it be 6, whatever. You keep those sticks up, and then everything below that you're going to prune. Everything above that is going to be your tree form. And Phantom is a really easy candidate to do this with. It's a great little option for a small little kind of patio tree. So cool.
I would contend that the hydrangeas in general are a much better choice in our Middle Tennessee area for tree forming, as opposed to something like a crepe myrtle, which can get frozen back and almost certainly will get freeze damage, and so it will revert to a multi-stem when you have an event like we had this past winter. And hydrangeas are a lot more winter hardy. They're not nearly as susceptible to that freeze back. So if you can get that up, really the biggest thing you have to do after you get all the limbs off of it is just keep those little shoots that may come out from underneath where you're wanting the canopy. Keep those, just roll them off with your thumb. They're very easy to stay on it and do it, but you do have to be persistent about it.
Yeah. Donna Burke says, "It's good morning. It's a money kind of Saturday." Awesome.
Yeah.
It is. I hope you're out in the yard working, because it's a good day for work.
Now that
watch us now.
You know, that tip about tree forming the hydrangeas would also work on all of these frozen back crepe myrtles. If I'm going to try to do that a little bit more with my red rockets this year. So just go in there and pick out the ones you want and which ones you want to keep, right?
Yes, exactly. You want to. This is a great time. If you did have a crepe myrtle that suffered dieback from the top and the sticks are all dead and like I like to say, bird nested, where they the limbs turn in on themselves.
They're holding hands.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. Go in there and cut all those dead sticks back and let the new suckers form. And this year, you're probably going to just let those suckers kind of grow. Don't do much pruning this, growing season yet. Yeah, let them get to the kind of size you want height-wise during the season. And then over the wintertime, we're going to go in there and selectively prune individual canes that we want to keep. So say you want to keep a 3-stem tree going up, or you want a 5-stem tree. That's when you do that over the wintertime. Take out those stems that may be crossing, or limbs that are on the very interior of the plant. What we really want to try to create is this nice open vase shape of a crepe myrtle. So,
and I noticed you mentioned a 3-stem or a 5-stem, and you skipped right over 4.
I know.
No, he did 2 and 4 on the hydrangeas. So it must be like a state law or something. 2 or 4.
You got to have odd numbers.
Odd numbers. It's just, I don't know why, but as landscapers and people that design landscapes, I don't know, 3s and 5s and 7s is kind of how we go.
It's true.
And I think what it is
Not
that
in my house.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be. There's no landscape law.
No,
that,
really.
There's no plant police that are going to come.
What about these green dots that showed up mysteriously on several trees in my yard this week?
Green dots?
Yes, somebody came by and actually spray painted fluorescent green dots on several trees in the yard.
Josh, that's when you need to be beware. And now the green dot, depending on what the utility is, probably means that they're okay. However, if you have another color, maybe red,
orange,
no, it's going to get popped.
So how are you going to cut or trim a tulip poplar on one side and have it look good?
Well, you won't.
That won't look good.
No. So you're going to trim. Yeah, you're going to trim one side, and there's a pair of them, because we do things in even numbers. We tend to at the proving grounds, but
that's where you need to be proactive. This year, Josh, we have crepe myrtles that are under really tall power lines, but Natchez crepe myrtle get really tall, they have to be pulled back within bounds, and they every year mark our trees, or every 3 years they mark them for the city pruning them or the utilities pruning them, and we preemptively do that in advance so that we get them pruned the way we want them pruned, get them back inside the lines, and then they'll just pass over them once they come by. And if you want to be really extra sly about it, if you're curious, is once you have done that, then skillfully cover that little spot of paint.
Skillfully? I mean, that's what they give. That's what they gave us brown spray paint for.
There we go.
That's what I said. Skillfully.
I'm not saying that brown spray paint has already been has been brought out, but the green would indicate to me, if I don't know their color scheme, that it is good to go. I've been assured that they're all certified arborists too.
Yeah, well, possibly.
Dubious
But-
at best.
But if you do need to take some action, I would suggest if you're trying to keep these trees looking, given that a tulip tree is a naturally symmetrical tree,
Uh-huh.
you're going to want to.
I've noticed
You don't
that.
want to. You don't want to flat top them. You don't want to flat the side. You want to prune them evenly all the way around, and you want to do
they
both
will.
trees, even if the other tree doesn't is not affected due to its location. So it's important to.
What would you
Just try to
value? Just, I've got a couple of horticultural people here. What would you value a 20-inch caliper, approximately 50-foot tall Don Redwood at?
We would not do that because I have been summoned into court before because I offered an opinion on such,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not in that business. So I will
Even for
not-
me, David Bates.
not for you, Josh.
Not for me.
Oh, wow.
no,
There are
sir.
limits.
No, sir.
You can't value a 20-inch caliper tree. I mean, how
Okay.
you know what does
Exactly.
that? What does
It's
that mean
priceless,
to you? It's
is what we're
priceless.
saying.
Yeah,
yes.
I've had an insurance companies call me as well and ask me that same kind of question. Like, well, what would you value a tree this size? I'm like, just like David said, you can't. A 20-inch caliper Dawn Redwood to me would be like a child.
Yes.
Like it's priceless. I love that.
That's the way I feel about it. That's-
But the thing of it is, you start placing values on things, and then litigation gets inserted into it, and we want an expert witness, and we might be that, but I'm not really.
you're going to be treated as a hostile witness in this situation. That's what I'm hearing. Okay.
I was
Okay.
in one case, and
Okay.
I did receive
Know how I feel.
what I thought was minimal compensation for a full day of my expertise for about 45 minutes of
Okay.
work, where that I got questioned by the other side's attorney, or the people who were the perpetrators of the tree cutting or killing, and
Uh-huh.
the
Okay.
honorable judge came to my defense and says, "You cannot question. His family's been doing this for years."
Yes.
That was my last, and that was been 15 years ago. I said,
Okay.
I am not doing this again. So
Okay.
sorry,
Okay. Yeah.
Well, all right.
sorry, not my deal.
Okay. No, it's not
But you
your
know
deal.
what is your deal?
What is your deal?
Answering questions.
Yes, it is.
So here we go.
Answering questions. Let's do it.
My
Except in
dappled
court.
willow from except in court. Used to be. My dappled willow from y'all has center leaves that are turning yellow. I water 2 times a week, long soak.
Okay. So what you're doing is obviously okay because your plant is still up and alive, but those interior leaves are dropping. Okay. This is fairly common with dappled willow, and this is even if you're watering as much as you are. Now, what you have to know is that dappled willow and all willows could literally take as much water as you could throw at them. So they can stand in water and they can be okay. So you're never going to overwater this plant. But interior yellowing and dropping is a sign of stress, and mainly brought on by not enough water, okay? Now, you're going to see a little bit of this even with a non-stressed plant. Like, for some reason, willows and also hydrangeas, paniculata hydrangeas like limelights and bobos, they do this as well. This week has been the week of, like, the pictures that I have to look at to try to help people when they're sending us in photos of their plants that may be ailing a little bit. And it's always the interior yellow and then the drop. And that's just when you first plant them, and if they don't get enough right off the bat water, they will stress and do that.
Right.
Now, don't fret so much if that's happening. Mainly focus on the outside leaves of your plant. And if those are still upright and perky and not wilting on you, and those aren't the ones that are turning yellow and dropping, then you're typically okay. You're going to get this plant through the first season. Once you get it through the first season, it makes it to fall, sheds its leaves, and lies dormant through the winter. Wakes up next spring, then you may not ever have to water again, and it'll look a lot better. You won't see all those yellowing leaves on the inside. So keep it moist. Like I said, you're not going to overwater a willow. You can't do it.
Can't.
So-
I underwatered mine last year and killed it.
Oh.
It was a small 1 gallon. I forgot about it because I planted it at the bottom of a giant hill.
Oh.
So I didn't really forget about it. I just didn't want to walk down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and,
I was
one of the
hoping
things
Mother
about
Nature would step
dappled
in,
willows
she
that
didn't.
a lot of people need to be mindful of is that they have this very beautiful variegated foliage when they emerge in the springtime and with a rosy tint to it, and that fades as you get into the growing season. So not seeing that right now is normal. That's
Yes.
just the way it works.
And get ready for them to explode because that plant grows like a weed.
Real big.
Yeah,
God, it
you
gets big.
literally can cut them back to the ground every year if you wanted to.
If you
just
wanted to,
keep
certainly.
them, keep them combined. Hey, let's shift gears for just a moment. Talk about how you get your plants planted with the best success rate, and that's called Earth Mix Garden Products. And we are a proud supplier and seller of Earth Mix Garden Products right here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, as is the case with fine garden centers all over Middle Tennessee and Kentucky, Southern Ohio, Indiana, Northern Alabama, everywhere from Memphis to East Tennessee. So we'll explore that here in a moment on the map. But know this, no matter which product that you select, no matter which need you have in your garden, there's an Earth Mix Garden Products product especially for you. This time of year, a lot of outdoor planting going on. Proganics O, Landscape, Proganics I, if you're in Caroline's world where that you're planting indoor plants, or if you're doing organic gardening using Earth Mix Viragra or Garden, or both excellent choices. No matter which product you choose, you're getting a 100% organic, 100% peat free. That's right. You're not going to have fungus gnats or any of those issues. So it is produced as sustainably as possible. And the thing that ties many of these products together is Earth Mix Supernatural, which is the organic compost that really, it's not sold as a fertilizer, but your plants can't tell that. It's highly fertile, highly productive. It has extra endo and ectomycorrhiza fungi along with humic acid, and it is a naturally very fertile soil. When you use that and the other products that contain it, you won't need to fertilize for at least a month, probably 6 weeks. So if you're curious about where to get Earth Mix Garden Products, just go to the Find Earth Mix tab at earthmix.net. And once you're there, you're going to see the entire selection of all the various vendors around the areas I've already mentioned. You can simply zoom in. There's Redmond's Garden Center, way out. We got the world view there. I didn't intend to do that.
Way out.
You can either put in your particular address and get turn-by-turn directions, or you can zoom in the map, which I'm not going to do.
Well, the Palacio needs it. Yeah.
So anyway, check that out over at earthmix.net. Remember this, success in gardening begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix Garden Products. We appreciate you giving us a moment to talk about that and help you in your gardening efforts and take the work out of it. Earth Mix makes gardening much easier.
Hey, we've got a Earth Mix compliment that we got in from one of our viewers. So they said, no questions, just a happy statement. I have grown the biggest onions and shallots in my life. The only thing I did different this year was add Supernatural to all my beds this past winter, and I got fantastic results.
Well,
so,
hey.
yay!
Bravo,
I love
bravo.
Supernatural. It's wonderful.
I love onions
always-
and shallots.
And
Always
Austin
good to
loves
hear.
onions and shallots.
Fresh onions, y'all.
Have you ever grown onions? I'm sure you have. What kind
Ever
of
grown
question?
onions? Of course I've grown onions.
Caroline, you're
Love
insulting
onions.
me.
Ugh,
Did
they're
you grow them
good.
this year, though?
No, not this year. I got a late start this year on my vegetable garden. All my stuff is like behind. It all looks good. Everything's green, perky, looking good, but it's just late. I started late.
The great thing about a vegetable garden is you can start late and you can catch up.
It does catch up. It is. It's
There's
getting ready to
an
go.
obsession in the early spring to get things out and get them planted, and there's cool season crops where that's really important to get them out early. If you've got lettuce in the garden, it's done now. It's already bolted. The cool season crops are pretty much history at this point. But other than that, all the warm season things, they're very forgiving. You can start much later. And even if you've only took advantage of the free vegetable plants we've had over a couple of weeks there, those will all produce and do a really good job. So enjoy that late time gardening.
Hey, I've got a lettuce thing that happened.
What?
Let us know what happened.
I knew it. I was waiting on you, Tyler. The pun man.
Good. So good.
Tyler's got the best puns. Anyway, my lettuce, I've grew butter crunch, threw it out, just threw seeds on the ground, not even thinking about it. Just let them lay on top. They all germinated. Some bigger than others. I've got them out just in the dirt that I own. And there was about 5 heads that were getting to be perfect. I mean, perfect little heads of lettuce, of butter crunch that I thought, oh yeah, we're about to harvest these. I'm out looking at the garden last night with my wife, and she was like, hey, what'd you do with the lettuce that you harvested? I was like, what do you mean? I thought you harvested that lettuce. Nope.
Oh.
A deer harvested that lettuce and just chomped every bit of it. Ugh. Like all 5 of those butter crunch.
That's sad.
Yeah. It's annoying.
You know what? If he's going to take it, though, I hate to see a bite out of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead and eat the whole thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead and eat the whole thing.
Yeah. It took the whole thing. Just one swoop in, lettuce gone.
Oh,
You know what, though? We got some romaine that we're going to pick probably tonight. It never really got to full size. Once again, I started that a little bit late, and if I don't harvest it now, though, like David said, it's about to bolt, so I may as well go ahead and get it.
Yep.
And the leaves are a little bit smaller. It's like a medium-sized romaine, so they're going to be super tender.
They
and
actually,
delicious.
they actually charge more for that at the grocery store for those baby greens.
Well, they're so much better. They're so
Yeah.
tender.
Yes.
Now, Austin, explain to folks what it means when we say bolting.
Bolting means
That may be an unfamiliar term.
That is true. It bolts bolts up, and that means it sends up its flower stalk, its flowers, and then it'll produce its seed. So that's what bolting means. Typically in the vegetable world is when we use that term, and it's mainly for those cool season crops is when we mainly use the term bolt. But yeah, once it does that, the leaves just don't. They get bitter. Like they're almost too strong. If you've ever had a turnip green leaves that bolted,
Little much.
Oh my God, it is like just
now if for
harsh.
someone who's wanting to free up space in the garden, the thing to do is, of course, dig those out. If you're wanting to save seed, you need to leave those up.
Exactly.
Just stop eating the foliage off of it. Save the seed, and then you can replant next year.
Nice. I hope
There
your romaine's
cilantro, you
there when
get
you get
coriander.
home.
So I mean, that's really good stuff too.
That's true. Yep, cilantro will certainly go to seed here very quickly.
Real fast.
You know, it's way better to grow cilantro in the fall, like late summer through the fall.
Huh.
Way better, I'm telling you.
Wow.
It makes a shrub.
Does it?
It does.
I've had my cilantro get big. I never call it a shrub, though.
If you started at the right time, it'll be a shrub.
I'm going to try it this year and
right.
see what happens.
The problem is you can't barely find cilantro whenever you actually need to plant it here, you know?
Seeds?
Yeah, you have to do it from seed pretty
Yeah.
much.
I always grow it from seed. Most of my herbs like
It's
that.
easy. It's easy.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
But
From seed.
is it easy to transplant peonies right now? Is now a good time? I've transplanted mine in the fall, so I don't know.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
do y'all
I
think?
would say only if you're moving from one house to another. That's when you go, okay, yeah, well, you got to go or you're going to be leaving it behind. But
Exactly.
if you can wait, you probably ought to.
Yeah, I mean, it's least stressful on a peony when you do it over the wintertime when it has no foliage up. Can you do it now? Certainly. I mean, you know, as long as you're proactive about getting it to the hole quickly, you know, packing it back in nice and tight and then watering deeply. And don't expect that foliage to look good for the rest of this season. Sorry, it just doesn't. I mean, even peonies that are happy and healthy, for the most part, don't look great as we start getting from like now till fall. They start to get spotty. It's just not a very clean foliage plant here in Middle Tennessee. But like I said, peonies are very hardy plants. I'll give them that.
Yeah, and transplanting anything, the key is timing. I mean, and being ready to immediately replant it. So my suggestion to folks is to always dig the hole first that you're going to plant it into, and have all that soil dug out and prepared. Then dig the other one, immediately carry it over to the hole, backfill it, and water it immediately. The least amount of time that you can keep that plant out of the ground and get it re-watered back in, you will significantly reduce the amount of stress that the plant has and increase your chances of the plant not suffering ill effects from transplant shock.
And taking as big a root ball as you can too helps, right, David?
Yeah, but there's a diminishing returns to that as well. If it's an overly large root ball, you'll actually are almost certainly determining that you're going to be breaking roots off because you're not able to keep that all intact with the root ball. So you need to be working within reasonable guidelines. You don't want it to crack that ball and break roots off that are up close to the stem. So just be mindful of that.
Okay.
Transplanting. I do that a lot. I like to move my plants around.
I hate to move.
I love moving my
Once
plants.
they're in, they're in.
I'm going to try air layering this year. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try
Oh.
air layering on some dappled willows. So
Oh, that'll be an easy
I got
one.
the little kit with the little balls, and I'm going to put some earth mix in it and see what happens with them.
Document that.
I like soil layering.
Soil layering?
I got a fig in my yard. That it does automatic soil layering where the stems lay down and make contact
Really?
with the soil, and they start to root right there. So you can clip off behind, repot them, and I'm going to do some of those. So maybe I'll have something to share.
That's literally how people originally realized that you could air layer a plant.
Right.
It's probably from a fig. I would bet. Like honestly, figs are so old. I mean, people have been eating figs for millions of years. It
Forever.
seems like forever. And if a stem lays down on the ground and then they notice that it rooted, and they're like, "Oh, this is another form of propagation."
So what do you do? I wouldn't say necessarily force it down, but if you have one low, you just kind of weight it down and just let it sit. Do you scar the branch at all? Or?
Scarring helps, definitely.
Okay.
It'll naturally kind of rub on the ground, and that'll create that little wound, if you will, and then it'll root from that. Now, figs are really well known to root easy,
Okay.
and this bleeds all the way over into even Caroline's world with like a fiddle leaf fig. Let's say that. Like, how easy do those root?
Very easily.
I know.
And
All
then they
figs
die.
do.
It's
Well,
crazy.
and
don't
the fact that you see those aerial roots going up and down the stem on many of the plants, the tropical world tends to demonstrate it much more vividly than does more temperate climate plants.
But you've probably seen this even in your vegetable garden. If you've noticed a tomato that you let get down close to the ground, or even aerial roots on a
Absolutely.
tomato, they'll certainly root from that as well.
And that's one of those pro tip things when people are growing tomatoes. If you happen to have some that are stretched and leggy that you haven't planted, simply dig a much deeper hole and plant it down deep, or you can even lay the plant over and let all that stem make direct contact. Just make sure you strip off whatever leaves are on there.
Yep.
And allow those roots to, what that does is two things. It gets that vegetation off of it, and it also creates a wound where the roots will form.
Yep.
So
It's amazing. You know what I did? I cut off a bunch of little suckers from my tomatoes right before I went out of
Suckers?
town last week.
Yeah.
So like a week ago. I felt bad, so I just stuck them in the dirt thinking, oh, I'll give you a chance, but I know you're not going to do anything. Well, just about all of them
Wow.
took root while it was raining last week.
Cool.
And now I have too many tomato plants. So, yeah.
That's a great pro tip there as well. Like she just taking those sucker sprouts and using those for a second harvest, a second crop,
Yeah,
Great
and we're not
idea.
using the term suckers as
Sucker.
some kind of a alternate description or derogatory. That's SUCCOR, which is that growth that comes at the base, not SUCKERS. We're not
Correct.
calling them suckers.
It's SUCKAS.
No suckers.
Suckers.
But it is fun to see what plants can do.
Yep.
It's a wild world.
Very cool.
Let's talk about flowers, y'all.
Flowers.
What's a flowering climber that gets morning sun and afternoon shade? So I've got a crossvine that gets just that, and it's doing great. It was gorgeous this spring. Some people couldn't believe that it was that plant. I don't
Crossvine
have a
is-
picture.
That's a good plant.
I
That's
love
a
it.
hardy, hardy good plant.
Yeah, and bignonias are a native also, so they're which is the crossvine, and they do really well here. And they good thing about it is that they're almost a broadleaf vine, so they'll retain their foliage throughout the winter, and so it creates interest when other things are in vines in particular are just barren.
Yeah. Now I'm going clematis on this because I
Yeah.
love
You
my
are.
clematis.
Yes.
That's the first thing that occurred
Love
to
it.
me. Yeah.
A great spot for that. Jack Manii clematis is my favorite by far. It's one I grow at my house. A big purple bloomer. That thing's still blooming, y'all. I mean, it's still setting bud to bloom.
Wow.
Like it's a great plant.
It's getting it.
Great plant.
It is.
Yep. And and of course, to deal with clematis, people need the biggest mistake people make when they're planting clematis is, they need the full sun on the foliage, but they prefer shade on the roots, so they kind of need to be planted behind something that's in the foreground in order to achieve that ideal situation where the ground is kept comparatively cool, but the sun, the tops of the plants are afforded the opportunity to get maximum sun. They are not a shade plant at all.
No, they're not. You know what else isn't? Roses. So we have
No.
a viewer that planted 6 drift roses last month, and they said they're kind of looking scraggly. Any ideas what that could be?
I do. I've got a great idea what that could be. That's
Oh.
a rose for you. And drift roses kind of do that, and they go through that bloom cycle. We're actually dealing with this a little bit at the nursery right now. One of our good employees, Owen, yesterday cleaned up our rose section a little bit, did a great job. But a lot of those drift roses, they send that big first flush of blooms out, or even the second big flush of blooms. And then they're a little bit big. They're a little bit, like you said, scraggly. That's what they do. So let's go ahead and give them a nice cut back. Roses can be cut back multiple times throughout the year. And you don't just have to simply deadhead like you would, other flowering plants or whatever, where you just take the flower. You can take those stems back further than those spent flowers and get everything cut uniform and tight above, just all the stems tight above the plant, and then you'll see regrowth and then rebloom. So I really recommend you do that. It'll keep your plants from looking that having that scraggly look.
The drifts are really becoming my favorites too.
And
they're good roses.
And that method is particularly true when you're talking about shrub roses in particular. Knockout roses, drift roses are both great examples of that. That's what your shears are for, is for shearing them back and making that shrub look. So by evening up, taking all those long ends off, maybe reducing it by at least a third overall.
Yeah.
And then fertilizing it, because roses are also quite heavy feeders. Doing those two things will induce the next flush of growth and therefore the buds that will follow.
Yep. Good
Beautiful.
question.
Yeah,
when they're
great
happy
question.
and
That happens a
healthy
lot,
and
yeah.
those shiny leaves that they get, oh man, they're just gorgeous.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The glossiness of that leaf on some of those drift roses is really pretty.
Until a bug comes along and eats them.
Hush.
I got Japanese
Thanks for
beetle
your
on mine
optimism.
right now.
I had
I'm
Japanese-
so sorry. They weren't on anything until I got back in town, and they're everywhere now.
Are they really everywhere, though? Because I haven't seen just a ton yet.
I have so many. I
Interesting.
almost said a bad word.
You
but
went
I
to
didn't.
Wisconsin?
I went to Michigan to visit family,
Same
and it was
thing.
gorgeous. Their hostas there are amazing. Amazing.
They can grow hostas in the sun up there, it seems like.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
They get big. You said how big they were. You showed me a picture. They were.
Yeah,
They
there were some
large.
that came up to my waist. Never seen a hosta that big before.
Dang.
I was blown away. I got a picture, but I didn't share it with Tyler this morning. So sorry, everybody. Maybe next week. All right. Why is my blackberry bush growing so tall and wide, but no berries at all?
How old is it?
It doesn't say.
Well, that's
Sounds
odd.
like it needs a haircut.
I mean, yeah, you could certainly cut it if you want, but blackberry should be pretty much in full berry right now. My wife's been picking blackberries with the kids here for at least a week now.
Are they
just
in the
not
shade?
wild.
That's
Could be shady. That's a good point, David. They could be growing way tall and just not blooming very much because of the shade. A rose will do the same thing if you put it in the shade. It'll grow crazy big, but it won't bloom much. What's all this?
I don't
All right,
know.
birds.
There's a bird in
Knock
the
it
room.
off.
Oh, it wasn't. It was Josh to start, and then you went to my camera. Oh, you made me look bad. I'm okay. Sorry.
but-
Sorry.
blame it
everybody.
on
Maybe-
Tyler.
Yeah, it was Tyler.
Thanks, y'all.
Okay.
All right, so back to the blackberries.
Yeah.
So, Austin, could those blooms have gotten hit by an early freeze, perhaps?
No, we didn't
they
have
don't
that
get
this
them.
year. Well, we were long done with frost whenever
I mean,
berries were in
late,
bloom.
so-
Yeah, I know
not
my
really.
blackberries. Well, they're wild, and there's a whole field of them that I've gotten stuck in before. But they're going crazy right now. There's so many berries on them.
I know ours are too.
But
So
the deer
that's
usually
odd.
do
I think David might have hit it. Maybe it's the shade. Are they in shade? I don't know.
Are
Let
they
us
in
know.
shade? Let us know. Send
Send
us a
us
photo.
pictures.
You've stumped Austin, which is not easy to do. So congratulations.
Now, they're fairly showy bloomers too. Did we see flowers?
Oh, you certainly see flowers.
No,
on
I
the
mean
blackberry.
on the ones we're talking about. Did we see flowers? That's no flowers, no berries, right?
Well, yeah. If there's no flowers, there's no berries. So
Yeah.
They didn't describe.
Let's get a follow up.
Yeah.
That could be a sunshine thing too, though, right?
could be.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is my bee balm falling over in some spots but not others? I know mine is falling just from height, and when we got rain, it kind of fell out a little
Lays.
bit. And so I've cut it back about halfway, and it's already reflushing after a couple days. So that would be my opinion, which could be happening with your bee balm. Maybe a cat laid in it.
Yeah, exactly. It could have been any type of environmental factors. I mean, gravity will just lay down bee balm sometimes. But like Caroline said, really good to get in there and prune your bee balm, especially when it just starts to get, at this point in the stage in its game, it's got maybe some sporadic, blooms that are coming up again, but it's already made its big time flush. So, like Caroline just said, cut it in half, cut it to the dirt if you want. It doesn't matter. What bee balm is coming right back, and you'll
bloom
get a
again
new
and
bloom set. Yes,
Get bushy. It's going to double bloom, and you're going to be amazed.
that's the key.
You're going to say thank you, the At Home Show, for that.
Yes, don't be scared to cut it.
Don't be afraid.
Don't.
Hey, we like to say thank you here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, particularly those folks who kind enough to watch. Those folks that are in our customer base, our Bates Rewards members. We always appreciate everything. We couldn't exist without the many, thousands of wonderful folks who are kind enough to follow us and trust us with the plant making decisions that they've got to make in their life. We try to be worthy of that and give you really good information, and also help incentivize you to keep on gardening through the summer season. And that's part of what we do here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. A weekly reminder that I do is a blog post. If you go to batesnursery.com, and if you don't receive the blog post already, you can simply click on that link right in the middle of the page there. And the Saturated Summer Start was the entitled article this week. And you'll see that in the online version, it has blue hyperlinks. In the newsletter, those links are orange. So it may not be apparent that those are actual links. By the way, the Expertise is free link. That's where Tyler's webinar was hidden this week.
Austin's technically
in there. Tyler covered me on that one. I just totally spaced on it. But also what you have in there are links to specials we've got going on this week, which includes 25% off of all flowering annuals. So if you haven't quite got your flower planting done, come on out and see us. 25% off. You're also going to be able to have the best in soil amendments, 25% off bagged earth mix landscape. And additionally, and this is kind of gets over into Caroline's world a little bit, 25% off all decorative containers. So we've got quite an assortment of things. If you've had your eye on a container and you go, I'm really going to wait on that, well, here's your chance to come out and save big on those. 25% off all those items. That's through the end of business on Thursday of next week. Speaking of next week, just a reminder, the 4th of July weekend's coming up, not this coming weekend, but the following. We're going to be closed some extra days. We'll talk more about that next weekend. But just rest assured, whatever you're looking for in your lawn, your landscape, if you've got a question about plants and you have run out of ideas, well, this just in, we have not. We have plenty of ideas, and we can take you right to the various things we suggest to you and help you to get the right plant in the right place the first time, because that's the way we do it, Josh, here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. So since 1932, 91 years we've been beautifying Nashville. We appreciate that opportunity, and thank you for choosing us as your horticultural supplier, Bates Nursery and Garden Center.
And folks, when you come to this nursery, there's two places. We've talked about them earlier. Austin did the underused trees, and you have the pottery sale that's going on. Folks, you need to get over to the tree lot and see what's out there when you come to this nursery. And just because you see that one little run of pottery out there on one side, you got to get back in there and look around, because there is one little area back there that's got the white ones in it, Caroline. Unbelievable. Every shape, size.
Well, I promise you, once you've watched Austin's video from this week, you will be pumped to get out there. Austin, if you could say nothing else about him, he is an excitable and passionate gardener. He's not just blowing smoke. He's a guy that doesn't just talk the talk; he walks the walk. He's a really, it's a very informative, a very excellent webinar that you put out this week, and it's worth the nearly hour-long time that you would sit and absorb that information. It's quite good.
Goes by in a flash.
Every color under the rainbow in the pottery. I mean, you've got, of course, the traditional Mediterranean blues in different shades and different sheens, and oh my gosh, those white ones back there just really blew me away.
Well, it's great. Think about it. You can come in here right now. You come in, you find your pot, 25% off. You find your dirt to fill it up, 25% off. You go get those annuals that are still pretty, 25% off, and you've got a beautiful potted plant.
And look at that.
It's all discounted. You know what we really have right now? Some beautiful sun pations still. Sun pations are money.
Some white ones.
When it comes
They
to
become shrubs.
annuals. They do become
Back to our
shrubs.
shrub talk.
They're huge. They consistently bloom, and they will certainly live in the full sun. I've seen it. many years in a row now. I've seen it. I was a little on the fence at first when sun patients came out, if they could actually handle that intense sun. No, they certainly can, and we've got some beautiful ones right now. So,
Well, there's pots big enough back there to go to the tree. You go to the trees and put a tree in some of those pots.
I can fit in some of those
there.
pots all the way. So we got some big ones.
There's some big pots
some
still.
giant pots.
So,
All right.
We got
moving
more
on.
questions, you guys.
I got a quick one over here on the Facebook
Take it away,
page from
Josh.
Alita. What is a good spray to use for Japanese beetles?
Oh no!
Oh. You used the J word over there, guys.
did.
It's happening.
yeah. Japanese beetles are very, very mobile, so they're somewhat hard to really target. If you use something with an active ingredient of, say, permethrin or pyrethrins in it, they certainly will injure and kill the Japanese beetles. The key is you kind of have to make contact with them. If you have a specimen, say like Japanese maple or something, that Japanese beetles really do like the red leaf maples. For some reason, Japanese beetles really like dark leaf anything. It's just how it is. So if you don't want them to injure your plant whatsoever, then you need to be preventative, and you're going to spray something, like I said, with permethrin or pyrethrins in it. That's just what we sell here. Lambda cyhalothrin. That's a crazy word.
You sound smart.
We do sell that. That's another active ingredient. It's just a synthetic pyrethrin, if you will. Not if you will. It is a synthetic pyrethrin that really can kill. It kills like 130 different insects or something.
Wow. That's nice.
But that actually gets on the leaf, and then whenever the Japanese beetle feeds on that leaf, it will then perish. So you could use those.
It makes them pay at least.
It does.
You feel like you've exacted a measure of revenge.
But the old flick method is not bad.
the old sex attractant traps really are. If you don't want to spray at all, those work quite well, and they make great gifts for your neighbors, Josh.
Yes.
Because if you put those
In your
their
yard,
yeah,
they
it'll attract them over there.
Yeah.
So yes,
Or hang them on the mailbox.
yeah.
Yeah, it's far enough away from everything usually.
Yeah, get them out of your own
Yeah.
yard.
Yeah.
Send them to your
Yep.
neighbors. All right, let's talk about trees. We know Austin loves trees.
Yes.
Autumn blaze maple planted in fall of 2022. Its leaves are reddish brown right now.
Interesting. It's stressed in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure in which way at the moment. You can send us some pictures. That might be helpful. But, sometimes maples are funny.
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen maples on our lot many a times. And I've actually seen a customer showed me a picture of a maple that she really liked, actually at a different nursery. And it had these like reddish like leaves that already for some weird reason. And she was like, I just love that color. And I'm like, that color just means stress. Like those, maple leaves should be green until the fall whenever they turn that reddish or yellow or orange, whatever they do. But right now they shouldn't necessarily be. So there is some sort of stress factor going on with your tree. Now, not necessarily a killer, just going to kill your plant or anything, but you're going to have to live with that. I would like to see pictures, though. Maybe I'll give you a call.
One of the things
Where
I
it's
have
planted
seen
too
occur,
might make a difference too, right, Austin? Where you've got it.
It could. I mean, and it's a new tree. You just planted it last year, so it's small. It doesn't have a ton of leaves.
one of the things I have seen occur over the years is for people thinking that they're doing a good job by digging a hole a little too deep. And if you don't ever want to plant any tree or below the grade that it's growing in the container already, if anything slightly above is better than too low.
Most definitely.
Or to go back in and change the elevation of the grade that is in the area. So you want that, you don't want soil making direct contact with the bark all the way around it. Now, this is probably not what the issue is, but it's another thing for people just to be mindful of is don't pile soil up around the trunks of the tree. It may take it a couple of years, but if it rots off the bark all the way around the tree, that tree is dead.
Watch string trimmers too.
We see it all the time.
They are a very terrible culprit. So yes, some kind of protection, or tell them to stay away from your tree. You got to do something.
Yeah.
Stay back.
I know it looks ugly, but I have seen people take a piece of ADS corrugated pipe and slit it and stick it around them, and it's
then you can
better than
mulch.
killing the tree, but it's
you
not
don't put
all
you don't
up.
put it
looks
in there
ugly.
too. But it doesn't look ugly.
I
It
think
doesn't
does,
have to
John.
be very tall either. I mean, you can only a couple of
Well,
inches,
it
couple 3 or
It could
4
be-
inches.
It can still be ugly and be short.
That's true.
Boy,
Speaking of ugly,
look who's talking about that.
can we talk about stuff that's pretty that might be
Okay.
all around town? in some people's yards. Tyler, I'm trying to give you a hint here.
Oh, you mean
What's in bloom?
with Austin?
Hi. Oh my God, my voice just cracked.
Hello.
That was
The
bad.
man who's in
Strong.
perpetual. He's in perpetual
Wow.
puberty. Go
Seriously,
ahead, Austin.
I've been dealing with this my whole life. Okay, things are in bloom. Magnolia trees are still in bloom. Still talking about it. Been a month and a half. Okay, let's get that out of the way. One of my favorites that I actually talked about on my tree talk this week is the golden rain tree. Y'all, them trees that are blooming
Colereteria.
yellow. Yes, Colereteria. Beautiful tree. Nothing else blooms yellow. What else blooms yellow? Y'all tell me. What? Go ahead
Nothing.
and say it.
Nothing here.
No, not perennials. There's plenty of things that bloom yellow. I mean trees. Hardly any trees.
one-
There's a yellow deciduous magnolia.
In the
There
very
is that,
early
yes.
spring, yes,
So,
I give you that.
got
It's
ya.
pretty good. It's not true. It's all soft yellow.
It
though.
is yellow.
It's not great yellow.
even a real yellow.
It's not like golden rain tree yellow.
Okay, that's true. It's
Yes.
a vibrant yellow.
Yes, golden rain tree, beautiful. Everyone should have one. I think you should. Anyway, okay, this week, what just happened? Rose of Sharon popped off, okay? Hibiscus syriacus. That's always cool. A little bit smaller than your traditional huge blooming hibiscus, but there's a million little blooms. Those are great. Crepe myrtle just starting. I talked about it last week. They're just starting. I'm going to be talking about that for a whole nother month. Easy. They bloom for a long time. And then my very first blooms on mimosa just started happening. So
Oh, I love that
Yep.
tree.
I know. I love mimosa trees as well.
Sure a sign of summer.
Yeah, it really is.
Absolutely is.
Once again, all the hydrangeas, y'all's hydrangeas are beautiful this year. If you've planted hydrangeas, great work because they're looking money. The Annabelle types, the Incrediballs, you just can't beat it with pure white. The Annabelles have been beautiful this year. They haven't been flopping all that bad. Like they're still very, very true and pretty. Mine are as well. I love them. Number of perennials, so the coreopsis, the coneflower, the black-eyed Susan, all of that stuff popping off. We have agastache here in the studio today, a bee magnet. Those are certainly going nuts. A couple of the vines, like I said, my clematis still popping off. Those look great. And then I noticed trumpet vine.
I did too this week.
Mhm,
Yep.
the orange blooming trumpet vine that's got it's got pretty interesting foliage as well. But it's a vine that'll race up things. It'll climb up trees. That's where I noticed it this morning on my drive in. So that's a good one. We also sell that plant. Gets very big very quickly. And then canna lily's still going, and I noticed in David's little side yard here at the nursery, he's got a calla lily that's been coming back for years and years, and it is in bloom. I told this to Melissa, David, just so you know, and she was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get over there and steal a little bloom so I can
Oh,
have
you
it."
told him, Melissa.
And I did
I'm gonna tell
authorize her
on you.
to do that.
Okay, good.
It's all good.
Because
If you
calla
saw her-
lilies make really cool cut flowers, really cool.
really nice.
You know what I noticed in my house? My gladiolus is really, really pretty right now. Okay, it's
Same.
red blooming. Yep.
So yours bloomed.
Yeah,
I
it did.
transplanted mine, so they're not going to bloom.
Yeah, no, mine are blooming pure red right now, and it's actually standing up. Most of the time, gladiolus will flop because the flower head is, or the flower spike gets loaded with blooms, and it gets so heavy that it'll flop over. Well, this one's staying upright, so I'm happy with that. I got to talk about my wave petunias, y'all, because they money right now, spreading through the whole bed, just really, really pretty. This is like as good as they're gonna get for the season. It won't be long. Probably about 2 weeks from now, I'm going to have to give them a haircut. They got to go back tight so they can reflush a whole new bloom
Yep.
set. But right now, wave petunias are a great plant to grow amongst all your other plants. They just fill the bed and tuckle. I was going to say tuck in or nestle. And
tuckle on in.
They tuckle into your
They
boxwoods
tuckle in.
is what they're doing with mine. So I'm loving those right now. So there you go. That's what's in bloom. Hope you're enjoying Middle Tennessee right now.
It's gorgeous. Right
Sam
now.
from-
Hey,
Go
speaking
ahead,
of
David.
what's in bloom,
What's in
and they're
bloom?
not in bloom right now, but I keep referring back to your webinar this week. Two of the things that I forget frequently, and that's another great point for the trees two of the trees you were talking about, the little leaf linden and the basswood, which of course is another related, that they both are really great trees for people who are wanting to feed the bees.
Uh-huh.
They are both really desirable. Now, it's not going to be an extremely showy kind of flower, but it will be somewhat showy, and the bees will, flock to those millions of flowers as you described. So
Is that a smallmouth bass or a largemouth bass, David?
there's
Well.
a little leaf linden, and you can determine the other one to be whatever you like.
Oh,
Josh.
okay.
Both of which are in
That-
bloom right now. I
okay.
kind of forgot about those, but yeah, little leaf
Yeah.
linden and basswood are in bloom right now. So the bees are drinking.
The bees are
Yep.
drinking. Nice. What about ground cover under trees for a slope?
Okay.
Good
I
question.
mean, there's options for that. You know, old school English ivy. I mean, certainly be fine. Vinca minor will work for that type of scenario. I'm assuming this tree is throwing some shade,
Yeah.
so those are two that
Yeah.
can be in some shade.
Some shade.
Now, the one concern about English ivy, particularly on where the tree's located, is you want to have that in an area where you can manage it intensely.
Yep.
English ivy can be invasive.
Yeah, it'll
And
run up that
because
tree.
of that- right now, some will consider Vinca minor or common periwinkle as being invasive. I'm not one of those people. I think it's easy to manage. It will not grow up a tree either.
No, it won't.
And it is also evergreen, so you have foliage year round, and you do get flowers in the spring. So it's a really good choice, I think. Still,
I agree with that. I don't think it's invasive either. It's a grower. Don't get us wrong.
Oh, boy.
That thing grows, but once it gets to the edge of the bed or where you want it to stop, just weed eat it.
Wait,
you
are
know?
we still talking about ivy?
No, Vinca.
Vinca.
Sorry, y'all.
Vinca, yeah.
Vinca
Got
minor.
distracted.
Yeah,
Little
but
bitty-
ivy can get away from you if you don't pay attention.
Yes,
gets
it
thick.
can.
You don't want to
Yeah.
ever plant it along a woodland area because it will get away from you. if you
Yeah.
do
I
that.
strongly dislike it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll escape. It's pretty, but it'll get wild.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any advice on pruning or trimming an olive tree? Mine is tall, but the trunk isn't strong enough, so she leans. Well, if your olive tree is leaning, you can stake it up. I use bamboo stakes. I'll tie them up to stake them. But I do like cutting back olive trees. They respond to it really well, as I would say most plants do. Most tree form house plants. So you can cut it, bring it in a little bit tighter so it's not as top heavy up top. Put it in some sun. They like almost as much sun as you can give them. So if it's not in a lot of sun, go ahead, cut it back, water it, stick it out in a little bit more sun, and you'll be pretty shocked at how quickly it's going to flush out and how healthy those leaves look. So we got some at the nursery a couple weeks ago. They looked good, but I wanted to clean them up a little bit. I gave them all a haircut, and I would say in like 2 days they had fresh, new, gorgeous, glossy green leaves coming out, and I was shocked.
From an indoor plant standpoint, and obviously anyone who's going to keep one year round, it's got to be indoors for a considerable part of the year. The biggest single thing that I see people overlooking to do is to rotate the plant, and it's probably leaning because it was in a window growing towards the sunlight, and that will make them lean severely. So it may not be intuitive, but you need to turn it so that don't wait until it's leaning 45 degrees towards the window. Stay ahead of the curve a little bit. And also, if you've got it outside, try to put the worst looking side towards the sun side, and it'll induce more growth that way. So plants are always in search of light. That's just the way it is.
They are. They will reach for that light. But while we're talking about pruning houseplants, I know we touched on your Audrey ficus last week, and I actually cut back a bunch of my ficus last week before I left town so they would start flushing back out. So cutting on houseplants or outdoor plants, I mean, I feel, depending on what it is, some of them don't like to be cut back, but it's a great fun activity, and they respond so well, and they look so great after the winter once you cut on them.
Is that avocado
great
tree that I saw back towards the
There
pottery?
is an avocado tree with some avocados on it.
Oh my goodness!
I know.
Is that an indoor? Would we?
It's an indoor.
Okay.
Yeah. It is not.
I
gonna
contend
survive.
trimming is therapeutic and a great stress reliever. Sometimes if you've got a little tension going on, getting out there with a pair of shears and trimming some things helps to work some of that off.
That's kind of
does.
like, oh no, I don't think you should be mad when you're cutting on a living thing, David.
It depends on what you're cutting.
Yeah, it does. It highly depends on what you're cutting.
It could
Sometimes
aid
goes
your
really
precision.
good. Yeah. And just watching the
tact.
new growth happen. I mean, the whole process is just exhilarating. Y'all.
It's a rejuvenation.
It is a rejuvenation. Killing stuff to make new life. All right, last question. Favorite native plants.
Oh gosh,
Here we go.
we live in we have
There's
more
a lot here.
species of native plant here.
I'm feeling echinacea right now. I know it seems very maybe boring, but all All of mine look so good. There's so many different colors out there.
It's been a good echinacea year. I will say
It really
that.
has
Around
been.
town, echinacea looks good this year.
And then native grasses are always a good thing.
I'm all about native trees.
Yep.
Yeah, you are. Obviously.
I love
be
them
a
native
And
trees.
of the list you put out, how many of that 9 were natives? Were the
Almost all
Almost
of them.
all
pretty
of them
much,
were,
yeah.
right?
At least native to the United States. Maybe not necessarily Middle Tennessee, but pretty much most of them are. Although somewhat rare to find. I mentioned in the webinar, David, you just reminded me of this. Plants are in seek of light, and they certainly are. And I talked about Halesia, the Carolina silver bell.
Stretching.
Yeah. And it's a naturally 30 to 40 foot tall grower here. So something you could put in your front yard, somewhat close to your home, to where it's not just going to get crazy out of bounds. But the champion tree in the world, or really in the United States, I guess, is in the Great Smoky Mountains, and it's 104 feet tall.
Whoa.
So when you're talking about a 40-foot tree in the sun, you put it in the shade in the mountains, and it's got everything it wants down below in the soil. It's great, environment for it to live, but it has to stretch for the light because it's competing with everything else. 104 feet tall. Is that not incredible?
It's a giant
That
tree.
is amazing.
That's incredible. I love it.
Wow.
And another great tree, the Carolina silver barrel, is a beauty, as were the entire list that you put for. So make sure you check that out this week and go over to our Bates Nursery YouTube site and see it there, or you can just click on the link in the newsletter. It's kind of hidden.
There's
I'll
another
try to do a
link.
better job of next week getting that out there so that everyone can see it, obviously.
And we got to share it to the Facebook page for the At Home Show too, as well, David Bates. So it's a great thing. Hey, folks, music means we got to get out of here. But hey, it's going to be a great day. You got to come out there and get some plants and stuff. And remember, there's a big time sale on pottery, 25% off. You got flowering plants, annuals,
Flowering annuals.
25% off.
Earth Mix Landscaping bags.
Hey, come get the kit and get it ready to go. Hey, next Saturday morning, we're going to come back. It might be no fireworks. It's not 4th of July falls on Tuesday this year.
You never know.
You never know. There's always fireworks.
There's always fireworks in this studio.
Yes, there are.
Indeed.
Sparklers a pound. All right. We'll see you next Saturday morning for the At Home Show.